Time for Ask Annex. Got a question for us? You head to the website, annexwealth.com. In the studio, Fred Coleman, CFP and a wealth manager. Hey.
Hey, Danny.
And we got Matt Morzy, investment team manager, also a CFP. Hello.
Hey, Danny.
Question number one on Ask Annex today. What advice do you give when one spouse wants to move upon retiring and the other wants to stay? And Matt and I were talking off air. We both could have written this question.
Oh, for sure. It's a conversation we have in my house all the time, and I've got quite a while before retirement.
Yeah.
To us, it's communication and working through, what's important and having something to retire to and what your plan is going to be and get to that spot. I think, sometimes it's moving within a different area of where you already live. Sometimes it's more drastic of living to a different part of the country. For me, I like warm weather and, frankly, I don't really like the Wisconsin winters, although this one was pretty mild. So I'd want to move down south, but my wife's not fully on board with that. So I've got 20 years plus to get her to change her mind. But ultimately, it's communication, I think, between everyone to figure out what those goals are for retirement and what you want to do there.
Question two. Are you familiar with Acorns? I'm wondering if I need to push my kids to consider something like this to get them interested in savings. We've got parents all the way around. Fred, we'll start with you.
I love Acorns, and the big reason for that is just because it promotes kids to invest or promotes people to invest. And I'm for anything that does move the bar forward with that, whether it's a simple app where you're rounding up your spare change or you're doing it intentionally. And the big thing is with kids, you have the opportunity when they're young to mold them, whereas when they get older, it's a lot harder to change those habits. So anything you can do to create those habits when it comes to automatic investing, teaching them about the stock market, all those things will pay dividends in the long term.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. And I think we can tell from, behavioral finance, the things that encourage people to save or encourage people to do the right thing. We think about payroll deductions from a 401k standpoint, the amount of money that's been saved in 401ks or 403bs because it's automatic. You don't think about it and you don't even see it unless you're looking at your pay stub is dramatic. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that have been the push over the last few years in that part of the industry and from out of Washington as making automatic 401k contributions when you start at a new employer, and then you don't even get to make that choice right away. It's done there, and then you have to make a choice either not to do it or to change it. It's really powerful. Same thing if you think about from a tax standpoint, that your taxes are taken straight out of your paycheck because the government found that if you had to just write that full check once a year, the odds of them collecting and their ability to collect is much lower than if they did it automatically. Same thing with something like an app like that is just pulling that money out. You're not thinking about that extra 10 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents. And it seems so small, but it will add up. And especially if it's getting invested along the way, that's a great way to force savings on yourself, or helping your children get started like that. And it is going to seem really, really small for probably a really long time. But eventually, I think it's really going to kick up and it's really going to compound on itself. And it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's the little stuff. So we've got this program with our health insurance. If you go 5,000 steps, you get 75 cents. But if you do another 5,000, you get $1.25.
Oh, I love that.
I'm obsessed with getting the $2 every day. I'm like obsessed with it. It's Ask Annex. Next question is, I bought a stock that's going down. I'd like to set up a standing sell order so that if it hits a certain low point, sell it. I have the option on stop on quote, stop limit on quote, trailing stop, money, trailing stop percentage. This is the explanation given, but I still don't understand the difference.
There's a lot of different ways to place trades, and a lot of the terminology and the definitions that are put out there are pretty confusing and pretty technical. To try to simplify these things, let's just imagine a stock's at $50 a share. A stop on quote would say, or a lot of times it's just referred to as just a plain stop, is that if it falls down to 40, let's say, falls down to a lower number, you're just going to sell. You don't care what price you get for it. You just want to get out. So stock goes from 50 down to 40. You're going to get out probably somewhere around 40, but you don't know for sure. The risk there is if the stock closes at $41 today and bad earnings come out and it opens up at 35 tomorrow, you're probably going to get somewhere around 35, but you're getting out. Now, if you have a minimum that you want to make sure you get, that's where the stop limit comes in, where you could say, okay, my stop is 40, so that's a trigger, but I don't want to get anything lower than 40. So you have to have both it go down to 40, but then at least maintain 40, at least for another trade for you to get out at that point. So in that example where it went down to 35, you'd have to wait for that stock to go back up to 40, then you can get out. So it's saying, I want to get out, but here's the minimum. Trailing stop dollars or trailing stop percentages basically going to say is, I don't want to track this over time. And if my stock is going up, I want to have my stop follow it up with it. So you could either set a dollar amount difference. So that $10 before, Your stock went from 50 to 60. It's going to follow the stop up from 40 up to 50. It's going to do it for you. Stop percentage is, I want a percentage gap, and I wanted to follow it by that. So,
Did you follow any of that?
I leave that to the investment guys, right? That's why we have a great team to be able to do that.
I would say that is the simplistic explanation of it as well, too.
That's why I'm a client of Annex Wealth Management.
Pictures really do a good job in these types of explanations.
Matt Morzy, Investment Team Manager, CFP, thanks.
Thank you.
And we got Fred Coleman, CFP Wealth Manager, thank you.
Thanks, Danny.